So, I don't even know where to start. Quite a few things. The first example, my wife is such an incredible blessing, and it's because of my Father in heaven that she is the blessing that she is. I've been sitting here trying to figure out how to do a video and how to teach, and I don't want to push them out because I don't want them to feel like I don't want to be around my wife and our new puppy. But I also want to make sure I make this important and make sure I get this done. And without even me saying a thing, my wife picks up and says, well, I'm going to go take the dog in the other room. And that's my wife, and that's my father doing an awesome job and communicating where I'm bad. So, speaking of bad communication, we're going to teach on a subject this week that just kind of hit me out of the blue and hit me when I was walking my dog, of all things. And so I was walking our new puppy, and she's a puppy, so she just loves to go after everything, and she loves to go after little leaves on the ground, and she loves to just chew on things and bite people. But one of the things that just drives me crazy is the leaves and plants. She will literally just eat anything that's nearby her, whether it's like little cotton or whether it's anything that she can find, anything she can get her hands on, she'll try to eat because she's a puppy. She doesn't know any better. So, me being me, I'm a guy, I'm just saying, okay, well, I'm going to yank her and tell her no, firmly and strongly, and say, no, you can't do this. I'm a guy, I'm trying to be forceful and strong, not trying to harm her. I'm not going to yank her and like snap her neck or break her leg. No, good night, no. But I do want to give her enough force and enough strength to say, you do not need to do this. You need to listen to your father. And I was walking her, and at one point she started going down to this little ditch, and she started wandering into one of our neighbors' patches of, for lack of a better word, their area of landscaping. And so she starts trying to chew on one of the plants, and I just yank her and say, no, Marcy. And immediately I felt this resistance and this curl up in me like I'd done something wrong, like, oh my gosh, what if someone saw? Would they think I'm some terrible, mean person who beats my dog? And as soon as I felt that feeling, I also felt something else come along and say, that's not why you're doing it, though. And it was a little reminder that the opinions of others aren't what need to drive me and what I need to base my decisions off of. Because I need to base my decisions off what's best for my dog. Just like when I have kids, and one of the things that freaked me out was I thought, am I going to be a father who, when I have kids, is worried about what my parents tell me, is worried about what the people at the church tell me, is worried about what my friends tell me on how to raise my kids, or am I going to get to know my children, get to know the scriptures, and say that, yes, I want advice, I want wisdom, I want input, but ultimately I'm going to make a decision for my children that is the best I possibly believe it can be for them. I'm not making a decision out of fear, I'm not making a decision out of anything else. I want to make a decision out of their best interest. And you can't do that when you're afraid of others. You can't do that when you live in fear of man. I listened to a sermon just a little while back from one of my favorite pastors, and he said, fear of man is a killer. When you're afraid of men, when you're afraid of what people think of you, you're done in the kingdom. Your work for the Father is done. You have no place in it because you can't. Because you're placing people above the Father, and that's just not a way to live. And so we're going to dig into a story in Scripture today that kind of deals with that, and you get to see something like this happen. You get to see two different perspectives. You get to see one from a godly perspective and one from a worldly perspective, and you get to say that as a empty-handed and pen with the Bible. Worldly, godly, that seems a little messed up, but anyways. So you get to see those two different perspectives in this story, and we're going to dig into it right now. So we're going into 2 Samuel chapter 6. We're starting in verse 12. And we go, when news was taken to King David that the Eternal had blessed Obed-Edom and all his household because of the covenant chest of God, the king went down and brought the chest from Obed-Edom's house up to the city of David, again accompanying it with rejoicing and ceremony. So basically David said, oh, the Ark of the Covenant's not terrifying, or it is terrifying, but it's not the bomb that he thought it was, because there was an issue recently before this where a guy had touched the Ark by accident and was basically killed by God as a result. So David got a little freaked out. But he sees, this is a good thing. I need it in my city. This is got the blessing of the Father on it, and I want God with me, period. I want God with me, whatever it takes. I want him here, and I want to worship him. And so he's saying, okay, let's bring it back to the city. So we go into this. He says, when the people carrying the chest of the Eternal had gone 6 steps, that's not a long distance, David sacrificed an ox and a fattened calf. So he's already sacrificing livestock, which is a big deal, obviously, back then. I mean, he's the king, so he has a few of them to spare, but that's still a lot of food that he's sacrificing 6 steps. And he danced before the Eternal One with all his might, clad in a priestly vest, which, if you know anything about the garbs at the time, priestly vests were not the most ornate things. These were simple robes that weren't designed to be drawing attention to the priests. They're designed to point attention to the Father. So David and the house of Israel carried the covenant chest of the Eternal One up to the city of David with shouts and the sounding of the trumpet. When Michal, or Michal, I don't know how to pronounce that, the daughter of Saul, who was David's wife, or one of his wives, looked out the window and saw King David leaping and dancing before the Eternal. Without thought for how he looked, she hated him. They carried the covenant chest of the Eternal One to its place inside the tent and that David had pitched to house it. And the king offered burnt sacrifices and peace offerings to the Eternal. When he had finished the sacrifices and the peace offering, he spoke a priestly blessing over the people in the name of the Eternal One, the commander of the heavenly armies. He gave all of Israel, all of the Israelites, every man and woman, a loaf of bread, a date roll, and a raisin cake, and then they all returned to their homes. So he is celebrating. He's throwing a party. He's excited. He is having a blast. He's dancing. He's singing. And it's not because, good stuff's going to happen. All this good stuff happened. We're all going to eat them. Now we're going to get it. Yeah, party. The glory days are here. We're going to have milk and honey. It's not like that. It's not like he just won the lottery. I'm trying to worship unrestrainedly for my Father. He is losing his mind in a worship to the Father, which we pause for a second there and getting outside of the story of the sermon we're talking about. Let's just think about that for a second. When's the last time you actually sat down and just unrestrainedly did anything for God? When's the last time you sat down and unrestrainedly wept before God? When's the last time you sat down and unrestrainedly just poured out your heart and your hurt to the Father? When's the last time you got before God and just said thank you without anything being held back? When's the last time you held something back from him? You want a person to look to imitate? Jesus was the first one, and he never held a darn thing back. You want a person in the Old Testament who's a man after God's own heart? David is a very, very good person to look at, because he never held anything back from God. There's one time when he did, and immediately after he did, he just went lost it, and then went straight after God again. He didn't hold anything back. His grief was before the Father at his own sin. So we're getting back onto the story here. As we remember, we want to be completely open with the Father. Verse 20, on David's return, he wanted to bestow good favor on his household, but Michal, the daughter of Saul, came out to meet him. So he's wanting to celebrate with his family. He's wanting to worship with his family. He's wanting to bring the party and the celebration of God's kingdom into his household. And his wife, she didn't want any of that. The king has distinguished him. This is Michal speaking. The king has distinguished himself today in front of his servants' maids. He revealed quite a lot, just as the lowest of the low might expose himself. She's pissed. She's basically saying, this is not how a king acts. This is not how a king behaves. A king is supposed to be this royal above everyone else, and everyone else is supposed to know it. People look up to the king because that is the person that's in charge. People look up to the king because he's the one worthy of honor. And you're not behaving like it, so there's no way these people are going to honor you, and thereby honor me. So that might be a little thing in there. There's no way those people are going to honor you if you're not willing to show them that they should honor you. Instead, you're running around like a child and dancing and behaving like a fool. That's what Michal is speaking from this place of just almost fear. And really it's fear of man, fear of what other people will think, and fear of what she's going to lose. She's afraid that if other people see how he's behaving, it's going to reflect on her. And all of a sudden her stature goes down. Her value goes down. Her worth goes down. And if you're thinking like that, you have no place in the kingdom. You have no place in the work of the Lord because you're not in a connection with God. Because God's going to call us to things that are absolutely ridiculous and will get you scorned by people who don't have God's vision. And there will be people in the church who will scorn you when you follow God. As we can see by Michal, this is a woman of his house. This is a woman of David's own house in the holy city of David, where they're bringing in the Ark of the Covenant. And his wife, one of the people who's supposed to support him the most, is basically calling him out. And David responds. It says, "It was for the Eternal One that I danced. The Lord chose me in place of your father Saul and all his descendants. He appointed me to rule over Israel's people. I will lower myself even further. Maybe I will even shame myself in my own eyes, but in the eyes of the maidservants of whom you speak, I will receive honor." He's basically saying, I'm not going to look for honor from people because of how big I am, because of how good I am, because of what I can do for them. I'm going to look to honor my Father, and it's amazing how people will honor that. One of the examples, True Kathy, is a phenomenal one. Here's a man who closed his businesses on Sundays because he wanted to honor God and put him first. And the utter stupidity of that from a business perspective, you're basically saying, I'm going to cut 1/7 of my revenue on a weekend too as well, where a restaurant does more business than it's going to do during the week. I'm going to cut my revenue by a large percentage and still somehow I'm going to succeed. It's utterly foolish from a business perspective, but from a kingdom perspective, when you put God first, when you say, God, you are the CEO of my business, you are in charge, you are the president, I put everything that I have before you, I want to honor you with the way I lead, I want to honor you with the way I work, I want to honor you with the way I worship, with the way I live. It's incredible what happens. No, this is not a prosperity gospel kind of thing. It's just not saying, oh, well, if you honor God, he'll give you $5 million. No. What I'm saying is that when you honor and seek to have deep, intimate relationship with the Father, where you are excited to be in his presence, where you are overjoyed to sit in your daddy's lap, your life will be much more full. And you will have so much more in abundance, because the God of the universe is not stingy. He is not a withholder of good things. He is a giver of good gifts. Jesus says that which of you, when your son asks you for fish or for bread, will give him a snake instead? How much more so will my Father in heaven give you good gifts when you ask for them? God doesn't give us snakes. He gives us good things. And when we honor him, when we praise him, when we are in intimate relationship with him, men have no hold over us. Our families have no hold over us. Our friends have no hold over us. And it's not to say that we don't seek wise counsel. You can seek wise counsel. But what should always supersede any counsel, what should always supersede any friendship, any relationship, is God himself, is the relationship with the Father. And that comes from reading the scriptures, that comes from spending time with him. And not just saying words and spending time at church and doing the right things, but having that relationship. The priests, you want a good example of being in a position of authority doesn't necessarily grant you a great relationship with God. Go look at Aaron, Moses' brother. Moses has gone up on the mount to be in an intimate relationship with the Father, and is sitting there with the Father and speaking to him face to face. Aaron kind of starts fearing people during all that. people come up to him and say, we're bored, this is ridiculous, that Moses is probably dead. And so he says, all right, well, calm down, guys, calm down. I've got a solution. Let's just throw a party for God. Sounds really good, right? Sounds like he's doing what David was doing. He's throwing a party for God. Except for he then says, okay, well, everyone bring your golden jewelry and all that kind of stuff. We'll throw it in the fire and see what happens. And they build themselves an idol and all of a sudden start worshiping the idol and saying, oh, well, yeah, we're throwing a party for God, yeah. And Moses comes down and says, the crap are you doing? And God literally has to tell Moses basically, go down to your people, because if I go down with you, I'll kill them. I won't go with you, because if I go with you down that mountain to see your people who are doing this thing, I will kill them. Fear of man is a killer. It takes you out of the kingdom. It takes you away from everything you're doing. So I go back to the story where I'm walking my dog, and I pull that into me being a father in the future, and I say, my heart has to be not what my family says. My heart has to be not what my friends say or anyone else. My heart has to be, what do I know my Father says? What do I talk to my Father? What do I hear from my Father? And that's what will change my children's lives. That's how I'll be a good father to my children. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pray for us and let us get back to our days. And I hope this means something to you. And if you have any ideas or anything, just leave a comment and I'll try and talk about it. So, dear Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for your story. Father, I pray that you would use this opportunity and use this story in Scripture to help us understand how we need to be completely undignified, completely open, and completely vulnerable with you. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.